start with the second session, which is on mobility data generating retail and real estate insights. I'm Ananya Narayan, Director, GW Consulting at Geospatial World, and it's a pleasure having all of you here. We have an interesting lineup of speakers today from the user side, as well as an industry player, a technology player with us. This is a new topic. This is a very interesting topic wherein we are trying to understand how mobility data can generate benefits for real estate and retail sector. What are the kind of trends, the kind of technology innovations, the impact that it can have on these two sectors. So I'm very pleased to welcome Elena, Head of Data Science, JLL. Elena. Jorge, Director of Data and Digital Transformation, AEDAS Homes. And Benoit, CEO, NEAR EU, and Global Privacy Officer, NEAR. Thank you for joining us today. I think in terms of presentation, we will start off with Elena. Elena, do you want to take the floor? Yeah. Just to give a background of how the session is going to flow, we'll be having 10 minutes presentation by each presenter, and then we'll have Q&A. So I would definitely request all the audience to please have some question and answers ready for our expert panelists. Thank you so much.
Well, hi everyone. It's really nice to be here with all of you. And thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Elena Rivas. I come from JLL, and more precisely from JLL Technologies. As you may know, JLL is a real estate company, and what we do as JLL Technologies is to bring technical solutions that are based in cutting-edge technologies, and to answer mainly this real estate answer. To answer this question that could be like, which is the price of my property, for example, or where should I invest, or where is the best place to live. I'm leading now the digital product team, and it's a mixture between data scientists and engineers. And what I want to show you today is some of these projects. Something important to note is that all the projects that we develop are at a global scale, okay? And as you may know, this is a huge challenge from a technical point of view, mainly when we are speaking about data, artificial intelligence model, and the infrastructure that has to support all of this. To face this problem, what we are doing is to create modularized solution. This means that we are creating modules, independent module that can be integrated in different applications. Inside our team, we are developing different applications for clients and also for our consultant. And at the end, what we want to build is this brain, this big brain that will allow us to better understand how we are having an impact in the cities where we work. If we land this idea, well, I would like to speak with you with this kind of data that are important in real estate. In real estate, everything is about the properties, the building itself, but also about the transaction or what happened inside these buildings. But also it's important the people that is inside this building and in the streets around those. In the middle of that, between transaction and people, we have all this data about location, demographic data, infrastructure data, and of course the environmental. For us, and not only in real estate, this information is also important. For years in JLL, we have been collecting data from telecom companies. Well, this is quite important to understand how the people move in the streets, mainly for retailers, or at least it has been important in the past year, because after COVID, the world has changed, as you all know. Currently, the e-commerce has grown a lot. In any case, what this kind of data allow us is to understand how the patterns were before and how now these patterns are changing. And based on those, we are able to choose what to do with our clients in commercial real estate, or to understand how to integrate our solution there. As you may know, the information from telecom companies are not only about location of these people, the volume, but also it's about the gender, the age, and even about the type of visitors they are. We are speaking about if they are tourists, if they are working there, or if they are only visiting, right? If you mix this kind of data, this telecom data, with data from the buildings itself, with the median income, for example, we are able in JLL to define which kind of building develop, which kind of residential building specifically, and decide if we want to create building for families, for singles, for older or younger people, right? Apart from this data, from this telecom data, we are using transaction data. In most of the countries, this information is not consolidated in only one source of truth. Even in those countries where we have a cadastre or we have a register, we need to put together a lot of different sources that have different structure, that sometimes this data is related to the whole building, sometimes to the land, sometimes to part of the building, and to different type of typologies. So what we have run on top of all these different sources is a kind of model, density-based spatial clustering that allow us to get this data all together. And at the end, the result is like a different view on the city. What we can see is instead of the height of the building, we see the height that is the sum or the summary of the number of transactions in every building. And we can see, for example, by colors, the type of transaction that are there. At the end, what we can see here is the interest of the people in a specific location. In this case, we have run also some kind of model, some kind of clustering model that allow us to find similarities between buildings. In this case, the main factor is the risk. I am speaking about physical risk of the property. I don't know if you could be able to answer this question. Is your property at risk? Most of the people cannot answer this question. That's why we are developing this tool that has as a main goal to bring environmental and social impact into real estate. In this tool, what we have done is to bring different variables from climate variables to social variables. We are speaking about fires, floods, tornadoes, but for us it's also important others like crime, poverty, because these ones are mainly defined by the others or are potentiating them. And the truth is that most of this data is not available, not even in this raw structure. We are showing here the historical information about tornadoes and earthquake in US. Nobody, or not most of the people cannot access to this information, or even if it's for free, they cannot manage the volume of data. The same with the crime information, right? I think that both of this information and other that we were summarizing before are quite important in the decision of which place I want to choose to live, or where do I want to invest, or even for a public institution to make decision and act consequently. Apart from developing this kind of model that we are doing, we are putting together all these layers that come from the different tools, and this allows the user to overlap this layer and answer independently for the model that we develop their own question, right? Even to have all this information in one place allow us to create other kind of projects. We have called this property scoring, and we can compare it with the model of the hotel, with the START model, right? And we are able, across different countries, to identify how good or how bad, or according to different criteria, the level of a building, right? We are speaking about total scoring. We can get it, that it would be the equivalent to the START in a hotel, but also we are able to go deep into each of these blocks. We are speaking about infrastructure, demographic, tourism, environmental, okay, but we also have atomic data inside of this block that allow us to convert those and do it across different countries, okay? We have, for example, in this case, data from New York, London, Madrid. You have seen that we are using Carto a lot. Well, we have been seeing a lot of variables, right, that doesn't have this obvious relation with real estate, as, for example, the price has, the price of a property, right? We have it also, and we can create this kind of 3D visualization that allow us to pick a place, in this case, it's a city in US, and check this unitary price, in this case for lease, in whatever place that we want. Well, for us, and of course, it's quite important, this kind of information, but to be aware of what we are doing and what we are creating in our cities and how we are defining our homes, and also to choose properly what we want to leave as a legacy is even more important. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elena. That was indeed a wonderful presentation. I especially liked how you brought in together the factors of spatial data integration with non-spatial data for real estate projects. Now we have with us Jorge, Director of Data and Digital Transformation, AEDAS Homes.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure. Thanks for the invitation. I want to talk about different real estate industry. This is a big data sources for real estate industry across another industry, but for AEDAS Homes is a real estate promoter only for new build homes, and it's a little part of the industry that has immaturity of the use of data for taking decisions. Why? Because when we are investing in land, we need to take 5-7 years to create a product. So the information changes a lot, and the market is automated. My first part is about what is the Spanish real estate situation and new build market. Only for a few insights to understand what are our principal keys, and then a few examples of what are we doing with data and location intelligence. Not really necessary mobile data, because it's not necessary for us. We are creating new neighborhoods, so the data available for this kind of areas are very, very low. The first thing is really our market. It's only the 18% of the total transaction real estate market in the Spanish market, and the average of the impact of the crisis was too high. As you see, 26, 2010. The number of new build houses are higher than the second hand, and then in the actual period, not for the COVID reasons, the difference between the new and the second hand are pretty high. So we are in a different situation like 10-15 years ago, and I think it will be an opportunity if we analyze the real estate clock for the total market. 2021 actual year is pretty similar in terms of recuperation and expansion than 2014 or 2016. And when we are seeing the new build homes in real estate, it's a period of recuperation, a future expansion, and it will be awesome because the future years could be see an increase of the number of house transactions. What is AEDAS Homes? AEDAS Homes, we deliver 3,000 houses in the last 3 years. We are the top developer in the Spanish market. We design beautiful buildings, really beautiful. So we work with the high top architectures departments. We sold more than 6,000 houses in the last 4 years. We develop our own technology to commercialize houses. It's a video. We use the Unreal engine with the BIM data created for the architect to put inside the video, and it's a zoom option for all our clients to really know the volumes, the lights, the final aspect of the house. And we have a really incredible objective that is that 25% of our houses will be industrialized, and this means a lot because we can reduce in 4 or 5 months the time to deliver a new home, and this is money for our clients and money for us, obviously. And all of this in only 5 years. We're really a type of startup because we created only 5 years ago. And we have a public objective that to be a 1.5 billion company in 2025. It's so impressive, and we are investing a lot. And this is why our technological and data proposals are very different than the other players in the market, because we want to scale up. And we know that it's impossible to scale up in this industry only with the human component. We need technology in the middle of the center of the decision, not at the end, like another years. But we have a problem. We are a very fragmented market. We only have a 5% of the market share. There are a lot of competitors, are really local competitors. These figures, it's very impressive, and we want to change, because in another market, the top 3 players have more than 20–25% of market share, and we have less than 10. So it's a time and opportunities for the following years. So what's the problem for us as a real estate developer when we are talking about data? There are thousands of data sources, and we can use it because they are prepared for second home market, not for new building specifically market, and it's very different. And there are another problem. There are not an uniform criteria, and really it's highly based. There's a problem for us, and that's why we develop our own tools to capture data and to have our exclusive information only to taking decisions, because the information published in portals or listed on websites, it's not enough. Our commercial model for all the new build homes is to publish only a part of the building to selling. It's not like a second home that we can analyze 80–85% of the total residential market, but with new building, these figures, it's only 10 or 15%. So the quality of the information, it's very low, and we need to develop our own tool. That's just an estimation for us that in different parts of the process, from the invest analysis of a land opportunity, the design process, the commercial process, and the build process, the use of different data sources to take decisions, to create solutions, to analyze better different areas. And this is the estimation of our competitors in 10 years ago. And the use of data are very low. It's a very manual industry. Now, the main thing we are increasing the use of data, but as you see, the mobility data is not present in the analysis because there are new areas, so there are no people living there to analyze their information. But what we are using is a high number of data sources. We are starting to analyze in mobility data because we are creating our own AEDAS home zones, and we can analyze and compare different zones with this kind of data and transform these insights into new zones. So it's possible to analyze data, but we need to have a data and AI hub. So I want to talk about two quick examples. The most important thing when we are talking with data is, and Jude says, it's you need to count stories. We need to create a narrative because our users are using an Excel files to take decisions. So when we are developing map solutions, they said, wow, what is this? I can't use it. I don't know what I need to touch to decide. So we need to respond answers, and we need to create a narrative for them. There are some information that we can use to create this narrative. Location, estimated dates for license, it's so important for us. It's the date that we could start to build a property. The topology, the urban planning, the price of the land, the competitors in this area, the prices, the level of sellers, and the urbanization process, the points of interest, and et cetera, a lot of information. That's a project that we analyzed more than 100,000 plots in only 75 municipalities in the Spanish market. It's the only, it's the best or the first work in the industry that we planned over there. It's a huge database, a unique database. And the second question is, what will be the best price for sell our houses? And it's not necessarily the highest price, it's the best price for another answers, because we need to talk with the banks for the financial proposals, and we need to sell, for example, 35% of the houses before we start to construct. So what is the best price in terms of return of investment for AEDAS, and what will we do with this kind of data, the price evolution, the sales evolution, the type of the houses for our competitors? And we don't have those information in every actor in the market right now. So we need to develop our own solution. It's named Marketa and Promociona. And the main topic is to convert our commercial guys into real estate data captures. And they are making mystery shopping work with the competitors to analyze the price, the quality of the houses, the typology, the rate of sales. And we really convert into exclusive users. They want to work with us because they are creating a new industry for data and for new build home data. And this is an example. Yearly, in the Spanish market, we sell more than all the industry, more than 60,000 houses per year. We analyze more than 48,000 houses, so it's a big part of the market, and it's I think it's the most huge database for new build houses. And we analyze, or we update every day this kind of information for more than 80 municipalities, and it is important because in those municipalities concentrate the 80% of the total transactions in the market. It is not necessary to analyze all the municipalities in Spain. We need to build our new build promoted areas because it's not really necessary a municipality. We need to analyze the competitors and in these kind of areas, and this is modeling with socioeconomical and mobile data information. And we really are analyzing that, for example, of Valencia, all our competitors, the qualities, the difference of the product mix between the number of bedrooms and the number of houses that are in each promotion, and the average ticket in terms of unit value or relative value. And we have more than 100 active users in Spain. It's a huge, it's more than other competitors that has a different presence. We have another unique solution that compares all the prices between AEDAS and the competitors in the area that the analyst can draw in the map in terms of surface and number of bedrooms. And this is important, the surface, because we have a different sources, the construction surface, the util surface, and we homogenize those surfaces because it's so important to compare the same magnitudes. For example, if we are analyzing that the prices of AEDAS are higher than competitors, we need to analyze, for example, the surface of the terrace, because they are different and the costs are different. So we can analyze and really decide, okay, I have a higher prices, but my sales evolution are lower than the competitors, and we say that we have in Valencia 4.2 sales per month per promotion, and the competitors 2.3. Even we are at higher prices, so really it's very important to compare the same kind of data sources. And the second example, we analyze, as I said before, and this is an example of Madrid, all the plots that are selling in Madrid, only for residential proposals, and depends of the type of the urban planning, the kind of property that we could build in them. And we can filter to create a new route to analyze for our analysis the opportunities and decide if they are a good or bad opportunity. I think it's not important. We compare a lot of public information too, like National Institute of Statistics or the government of Spain. And the most important is to create a company that really think in the concept of the scale up. If we want to multiply by 2 or by 3 our activity, we need to think be quickly in taking decisions. And this is kind of reports that we are creating automatically with all our data sources that analyze in a few insights a very quick picture of a land, of an area, with the land market and opportunities just analyzed. The demand and competitors, what are the products that they are demanding and our approach in this area, the type of clients, the sales evolution, the time to decision, the number of the visits to a selling point, and the macro real estate data in those environments. So just for finishing, 3 important lessons for us, at least. Technology is not at the end, it's in the middle, and it's so important. We need to create consistent stories because our users need quickly answers, and they need to trust in the answer. For trusting the answer, we need to fight for quality data, and this is so important. Taking bad decisions with bad data is the most common thing in our industry, and we need to put our best efforts to create or to capture this kind of pieces of data, whatever the cost really. The cost here is not important, it's not relevant because it's a new market, it's new data, so it's impossible put price for this or put the value. And really, in my experience, it's very common that create incredible dashboards with a lot of KPIs, a lot of graphics, incredible image. And that's what really scare our end user. They want a really simple question in a simple way of design. And for us, it will be very important because a half part of a company are using right now Power BI solutions. It's a half of the company. And not only the decision makers, it's for all the company, for all the departments. And this is why the information is made simple. And thank you very much. It's my social media if you want to follow up. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jorge. I think that was a great presentation. Thank you for showing us the real estate market of Spain and also highlighting that there are definitely different sources of data, and there is a need for quality data if we want to take forward the use of location data in real estate sector. So we'll get on to more questions on that. But now I have Benoit, CEO near EU, and Global Privacy Officer near. Just let me open your presentation.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do at NIR, and actually it's going to resonate quite well with what Elena and Jorge have presented just before. So I think it's going to be interesting. Before talking too much about NIR, maybe to share a bit about the technology that supports our products. We are the world's leading source of intelligence on people and places, and for that, we actually merge online and offline data. So there's a bunch of different sources that we take the data from, that we collect the data from, in order to build comprehensive profiles. And that's actually really helpful then to generate interesting insights. So typical examples of data sources for online behaviors or mobile applications that we use every day. And that's super helpful in particular when it comes to location data. It's also interesting because it helps us better understand what kind of content people use, what are their interests, and what kind of devices they use. And so as a result, in particular thanks to location data, this allows us to build interesting profiles based on users' offline behavior. So to make it a bit more easier to understand, this is a typical example of a profile that we can build thanks to that data. And so we know the area where a person lives, and then we can tell where that person goes over the course of a day. And this allows us to actually build a pretty comprehensive profile of that user. And so that's interesting, but on top of that profiles, we can then generate very interesting insights about those different locations those people have been. So we'll talk a bit more about that in a second. Just a few words about NEAR before diving into the details of the insights that we can generate for retail and real estate. So we operate at a pretty high level of scale with data on 1.6 billion users globally. We have a bunch of offices all over the world. I actually was a co-founder and CEO of a company called Timo, based in Europe, and we merged with the NEAR group last year. So I'm now heading Europe for the group. And we work with, so I don't know why Singapore is red, but it's the same kind of office as all the others. Nothing against Singapore. We work with a bunch of global brands to help them on their to help them make better decisions thanks to the actionable insights that we can provide them with. So let's talk a little bit about what these insights actually are. And this will resonate quite a lot with what we've talked before. So first thing is we actually, to give you the context, help a bunch of different verticals, because this kind of insights can be interesting for many different kinds of businesses. We're not going to talk about all of them today. We'll focus mostly on retail and real estate, but this is to give you sort of the full picture of the company. And so when it comes to retail and real estate, typical examples of use cases that we help our customers with is optimizing the trade areas. So thanks to the data that we know, that we shared before, we know for a given location where people come from to get to that location, the area that they come from. So that's very helpful for real estate companies and retailers, because it can help them better understand, okay, I've got a network of stores. What is the overlap between those stores? Is there cannibalization between the trade areas? How far do people come to get to my stores? Where are the main areas that drag traffic to my stores? And there's a bunch of other similar questions which are very helpful for them in order to either optimize their store planning or their geo-marketing or their store operations in general. So yeah, this is an example of what comes from the platform, where you have a bunch of stores, and you can see that there's actually significant overlap in the trade area between the different stores. And so that's very helpful for the retailer, because potentially that network of stores is not optimal. And so it could be much more relevant, profitable to adjust that. Other interesting kind of information is, given we also have information about the dwell time that people spend into the stores. And so that can help us better understand sort of the patterns, the traffic patterns that a store has. So you're going to tell me a store owner doesn't need us to know when people go to his store, right? He can just look at the purchase data, for instance. What's interesting, though, is that this is more interesting for real estate companies, for instance. If like a shopping mall operator, for instance, or a real estate company that doesn't have purchase data, it can be interesting for them to better understand when people come to their locations. On top of that, we can benchmark this against the competitive stores that are in the area. And if we realize that, for instance, the time at which people come to this store versus the time at which people come to this store might be completely different. And that can help a lot the brand better optimize its marketing strategy, for instance, to target some type of customers that they were not addressing so far. To get back to, if we get back to the first I mean, not the first slide, but the one where with the user journey I showed, where we know where people come from and different places where they go. This actually allows us to also understand where customers come from when they get to a store, and so it's not just about like the overall trade area, but also, you know, the different stores that those people visited before. And that can also be helpful for a brand, for a real estate or a retailer, to understand the different brands that are also visited by its customers, where people usually come from before visiting their locations. Do they come from home? Do they come from work? Do they come, like, is it part of a shopping spree, or is it like a one-off trip? What kind of locations do they visit before and after? And based on those results, they can obviously optimize their customer and marketing strategy. You can also tell whether, maybe before getting into that, you can also tell in a specific area, to get back to the competition benchmark, how your stores perform against competition. So, I mean, most brands have competitors, obviously, and you may consider that some of your stores are performing well or not so well. Some of your locations drag a lot of traffic, others not as much. Actually, it's very helpful to be able to compare that with what other competitors do in the area. And so you may actually realize that you were assuming that one of your stores was not performing that well. Actually, you're completely outperforming competitors. Or on the other way around, you realize that your market share in that specific area is way lower than what you can see on average. That's interesting because potentially it means that you should probably review either your store footprint or your marketing strategy in those areas, because you're maybe not competitive, or the other way around, you already have 100% market share. So, you know, you should maybe it's not worth all the marketing investment that you put in that area. And yeah, so that's another interesting use case that we can help real estate and retailers with. Thanks to all the human mobility data that we have, and so it reminds me of what Jorge presented just before. We can assess pretty accurately the density of people, and Elena showed some similar stuff actually. So we can assess the density of people in different areas, and whenever one considers where a new store or a new, you know, real estate program should be located, that can be among all the other different sources of data that are being used, and there's a lot, a very relevant one to assess the value of the opportunity. It can be either, okay, we know what kind of demographics we want to address with that real estate program, and actually we can tell that in that part of the city there is much more density, because this is where people go to, like, this is a very well located place from which people could go to their work, or this is where a lot of people pass by. Likewise for a retailer, they may notice that there's lots of people passing by there. Actually, 2 blocks further away from there, the traffic might be divided by 2. And so that's a very relevant information. It's both relevant for retailers where they want to pick a location. It's also interesting for a real estate company when they want to optimize their leases or their rents, and so how they can better actually market that with data. And this is, you know, taking a step back in terms of timing and on the time during which we look at a trend. It can also be interesting to look at long-term trends when it comes to human density, to understand, like, the areas that may be more dynamic or less dynamic. And whenever companies want to understand, and once again, like, you know, real estate programs are pretty long-term in terms of the way we assess the value. And so understanding those long-term trends can be interesting in order to better price the program and estimate the value. This can actually also be interesting, for instance, other use case which is not specific to real estate, but that we've been working a lot over the last couple of years, is better understanding human movement in order to help governments predict the spread of COVID. And so it's not really a long-term trend about the human density in an area, but it's to give an example of the value that can be delivered from that data. So just to get back to the near verse, as we call it, we have a suite of products that addresses those different use cases. I talked a lot about insights and analytics, and so the product that we have for that is called Vista. And so, not getting into the details, but most companies actually have their GIS and their tech stack because they actually manage a lot of different data sources. And so the idea is to plug into those, in the majority of cases, we're plugged into those systems, and so we're one of the data sources that is being used then for different use cases. We also have different products which are more, let's say, focused towards the activation rather than the insights. And so this is more like on the marketing front, because as you can imagine, given all the data and the understanding that we have about store customers, for instance, we can then activate and address, target the relevant people for a given marketing objective. That's it for me. I don't know if anyone has any questions or you want to...
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Thank you so much, Benoit. I would request all the panelists to please come and take a seat here. Thank you. Before I get started with my questions, I was just wondering if the audience has any questions. We have 2 questions. So I'll start with this one.
I have a question for 2 speakers. So, for the last presentation, I visited the NEAR website, and I see privacy by design. Can you explain a little bit what this means in practice, to have privacy by design?
Sure. Great question. So I'm actually the Global Privacy Officer of the company. So happy to speak about this very important topic for the company. We deal with a lot of personal data, as you have understood from all the data that our insights are based upon. And so that data is amazing from an insights and marketing standpoint, but it's very sensitive from a privacy standpoint, right? Like we have a lot of information about what people do. And so from a very high level standpoint, privacy by design means that for every product that we build, for every initiative that we carry out, we take the privacy aspects into account and we bake them in the product that we build. Now, more specifically, in terms of how we collect that data and like sort of what it means from a privacy standpoint for users, it's actually pretty simple. It is essential for us, for users to have the right level, which is total transparency, right level of transparency and control. So they should be fully aware of the kinds of data that are being collected and what that data is being used for. In particular, in Europe, with GDPR that came into force a few years ago, the way this actually works is you probably have noticed on every single website that you go to, or mobile app that you use, or any other service actually, that you have some consent boxes which asks you for your consent to actually collect a bunch of different sources of data and for a bunch of different purposes. And people must have the choice to consent or not consent. And so we would only collect data for the purposes that are approved by the user, and obviously when they give their consent.
The second question is for Elena, but it is related also to the last statement of Jorge, fight for quality data. So, and in one of your applications, you are mentioning that scoring a property in base of the exposure to risk. And when you're dealing with flooding risk, you know that the boundaries of the risk area is something that is just an approximation of the risk. So how you can trust, because if you are in or out the polygons, your property is scored in a different way. And in the past, there were a lot of concern of people that see the property going down in terms of the value just because they were 1 centimeter inside the polygon. So are you, I would say, ensuring that you are dealing with the accuracy or the uncertainty of certain data when you are integrating data from different sources?
Thank you for your question. I think it's a really good question. In fact, what we are doing is to work with probability of having this kind of risk. Something that we do, it's, you have seen that we have this polygon, these hexagon polygons, and what we do is not only to do a simple intersection between what happened inside that, but also we weight those actions that are near with a certain number. Okay, so at the end, it's not only to be in that hexagon, but also to be near has an impact in that value. So it's about probability plus to take into account what happened around in certain instance. That's how we do it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Next question.
I have more of a generic question. Obviously, it seems in your area, you're as bombarded as we are with data, and it feels overwhelming. And you just talked about the quality of data. And you seem to be having a data for everything, you know, where the next... I mean, it's amazing, but we are faced with the same problem a lot of times. Do you have rankings? Have you said no? What are you doing? Because it feels like the data market exploding. You can get everything, but you know, how do you make decisions? What you want, what you don't want? You know, have you bought something, thrown it out again, stuff like just out of interesting? Because our industry has the same problem. Well, maybe you're not, but it feels like you get data for everything.
If you want. Well, I feel that we are all doing the same. We are trying to collect data. Most of us are trying to collect the same data from the same sources, and we are in parallel working in the same thing, right? And I think that in some point we will arrive to a situation where this data will be in some place to be consumed. But we are in the early stage of this process. That's why we are running all to get the data, to prepare it, to consolidate them. Each of us are doing it in the best way that we can, but at the end, in some years, I think that we all will have some place to consume this kind of data in the same way, as we have now the possibility to get GPS information or something like this.
Yeah, maybe one thing I would add, this is a very relevant question, and we see lots of customers facing that concern. I think like there's so much data available right now, as you say, and in the end, data by itself has no value, right? The value is what you can build upon that data to help address, you know, business strategic decisions or initiatives. And so I think an interesting way to look at this is being clear about, you know, what is the objective, what is the end goal that you want to achieve, understanding what the price is for a real estate program, understanding where the next store should be located, or, you know, like there's as many use cases as projects in a company, basically. And then, based on that, the following question is, all right, this is my problem. What kind of data could help me take a better decision there? And then you can, you know, sort of benchmark all the different data sources. There's hundreds. And then it's about, like, you know, testing them and modeling them to see to what extent it can help you optimize your model and your decisions. And then once you've found an interesting source of data that is relevant to your stack, then it's an ongoing process.
Adding two specific tips, I think that my point of view is a client is a consumer of data, not a provider of data. And we, as a client, we need to develop our own capture data tool because there are not enough information in the market for our industry. And the second tip is, what's the price? When we are elevating the data buying decisions, our problem is, okay, we can buy the cadastral information and the register information for the Spanish market, but it's nearly 200,000 euros. So the executive committee said that's not important. It's very, very expensive. So, okay, we can collect a lot of data, but what's the price? As a client, what we are able to pay for this kind of information, and it's the distance between the collector and the client, and we need to arrange all these postures.
Somebody else said.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions specific to one of you, but in general, have you ever encountered a situation where you realize that you don't need to get the new data? You already have data which you have collected previously for some other purposes, but just tweaking it or maybe deriving the existing data, you can get more out of more insight, more intelligence out of the existing data. Have you that kind of experience?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, you are stressed about having more and more data because you think that the models are going to be better, but sometimes when you get more and more data, they don't have enough quality. What you have to do is to see those data in a different way. And that's what makes worthy the work that you are doing. And yeah, I am experiencing it, not all the time, because sometimes I get lost with so many data, but it's true that if you get a step back and you think again about those data that you had, you find new.
This discovery process, is that something more accidental, or is that something you can go for it?
Yeah, sometimes you speak with a client or with someone in the team and they saw something that you had before there all the time and they saw it. Other times because you spend time seeing them, and after all, you get other results.
When I have a sentence for my executive committee that it's not magic, it's science. And it's very, very different because when business areas try to understand, okay, with more data, the most common thing is you will be a better algorithm or a better insight. And it's not necessary. We don't use big data sources. It's really a small data, and we call it smart data. We need really quality data, and the important thing is not to have all the data of the market of area, because I think it's not necessary, and the cost, again, are higher, and it's very complicated to fight with the business areas for this kind of costs.
My personal, sorry. Well, I would just want to say that I think if you keep getting more data, you have also increasing risk of a data conflict and the data quality, right?
Yeah, so maybe one thing I can add on this, and also to your previous point, we have a pretty big team which is reviewing new data sources literally every day. And so what we do is we have clear business objectives that we want to achieve. And whenever a new data source is being offered to us, we take a look at it, we test it, we put it in our models, we see if it if it improves the accuracy, if it improves the quality of the model. If it does, by how much, and then it's indeed like a conflict/price conversation. But at least we're very clear.
Only one thing is related to what you have said. It's not only about science or the process. Sometimes we run really sophisticated model, but only changing the color of a visualization, sometimes you get better results. So it's about treating the data with in other way. It's to feel, to see them with other eyes.
This is a question for Benoit. I would like to know how do you deal with different privacy rules from a perspective of a global company? Thank you.
That's a great question. It's not a simple one. So the high-level principle is the same, like providing the right level of control and transparency. But then how the consent is being gathered from users, for instance, is going to be different from one geography to another. In Europe, it's opt-in based with GDPR. In the US, with CCPA and the other local, like statewide regulations that are starting to pop up, it's more opt-out based. In Singapore, it's also opt-out based, but the opt-out in the US is not the same and doesn't have the same form as in Singapore. So there are basic principles that we're going to follow consistently across the company, and then the details of how this is actually done will vary from one country to another. So it's a lot of work because in every country that we operate, and there's 44 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so the EU is one common regulation that makes things easier. But for the others, there might be specificities locally that we have to comply with.
We have one last question. Yeah, I'll try without the microphone. Thank you very much. So I work for an organization. We develop data management information systems for public health use cases, and we mainly work in Africa. So I was hoping, or I wish you were collecting all of this data in Africa in the cities. My question is, since all of these things help people choose to live and where and how they move is really relevant to public health, do you have any clients already in your specific markets that look at this from a public health perspective in terms of retail or in terms of public health planning?
I can answer if you want. Yeah, I think that most of our clients are private clients, investor, but in fact when we build all this solution, I always think about this kind of collaboration or this kind of applications, because perhaps not all the investors think about the risk in the same way that a public institution could do. So it's not happening right now, as far as I know, but well, JLL is huge, it's around the world, and at least in the projects that I work currently, that is not happening. But it would be a really, really good approach.
We are only in the Spanish market, so it's we don't use this kind of information for taking decisions, so I can answer it. Sorry.
And on our end, we work quite a lot with government and public bodies. Actually, I mentioned this use case about the modeling the evolution of COVID and how COVID spreads over a country. So we've been working with a lot of actually public health bodies for that. We also work with a bunch of universities or. It can be also, for instance, tourism boards. So they're not really, I mean, in many countries they're actually public, to help them, better understand their, and it's not really customers, but their users or their citizens' behavior or tourists. So yeah, we do quite a bit.
Thank you so much to all the panelists and the audience for participating in this session. I do not have to ask any questions. Thank you so much, Elena, Jorge, Benoit, and everyone else for joining us today. We are now breaking for networking reception as well as for lunch, and we'll see you back at 1 o'clock for the next session. Thank you so much. Thank you.